So what I'm going to do now is just keep the canvas flat on the table, because I'm going to put the base layer down. The base layer is essentially going to be distorted stripes and splashes across the canvas. So we're going to fill that up. Then what we'll do later is then put it up on the easel, and then I'll start to incorporate the main portrait composition. So what I'm going to do is just turn the audio off now and actually start to get the base layers down on it, and then we'll get it up on the easel and we'll really get into it. See you then.
What I'm mixing here is just a red with a white paint to give you sort of a pinkish orangey kind of color. In terms of the actual style that's going on the canvas, if you can imagine painting something like the stems of a big plant, what you want to be doing is going from one side of the canvas to the other. So you want to start using all that space and just creating your own independent pattern, or you can simply copy exactly as I'm doing at the moment on the canvas. To give you an idea on how you can actually approach it with different patterns, I've jumped over to Photoshop. So I'm using the pink color. So the pattern that I'm currently working with looks something kind of like this. As I mentioned, much like the stems on a plant. And what you want to be doing is just going from one end to the other. Now, a different pattern could be just starting from the corner, something round across the corner, and then continue that circle right around. So you can go from one side of the canvas to the other, and then spinning another circle on the other side. What you want to be doing is not using up too much of the canvas, like using too much of that color to flood the canvas. We just want to start creating some basic patterns. Another idea could be starting from the other end and giving it a bit of a warped feel across the middle. It's really up to you how you want to approach it. At the end of the day, it's just a matter of using your imagination, but not flooding the canvas too early with one particular cover. We just want to get some patterns moving on the canvas. But alternatively, you can copy mine if you prefer. In the beginning of using bigger canvases, it becomes a little bit of a guesstimation, I guess you could say, in terms of how much paint you actually need. But as you develop more and you actually practice more and more, you become better at being able to judge the amount of paint that you actually need in terms of the mix. In terms of mixing, I always recommend that you use jars and keep them in airtight, or keep airtight lids on them, particularly with acrylics, because they will dry quite quickly, and it allows you to come back to your paints later on. Now what I'm going to do here is just start to outline in the darker. It's a black, but I do have a mix of red in there as well. As I might have mentioned before, I tried to avoid using direct black because it can be quite sharp on the canvas. What it may appear to look like as absolute black, it is actually dulled down a little bit with the red. Another principle as well, you can see me lifting the canvas there, is that I am actually painting down the sides of the canvas because this is a gallery wrap canvas. They're generally about 4 centimeters deep, or 3.7 centimeters deep. So I have a habit of actually painting the sides of the canvas. In some cases, doing this avoids having to put any frames on the painting, and it gives it that dimensional look as well from the painting continuing around to the sides of the canvas. You don't necessarily have to do it. I mean, you can paint the sides of your canvas one particular color, something that's sort of something you've already used on the canvas. Now what I'm bringing in here is the orange, so I'll put the palette color up on the screen. Now orange is essentially a secondary color. A red and yellow are first colors, of course. So it's a matter of getting the mixture with the red and the yellow and applying some white to combine it to get to your Jaffa color. As I mentioned before, the best idea is to always be mixing in your jars, because It's a lot more difficult when you're in the pallets because they'll sort of spread thin and sort of slide around, but at least with the jar you can contain everything. And if you do make a mistake, it's quite easy to fix. You just apply another color and you'll start to bring back the actual color that you're looking for. It's just a matter of experimenting until you get it exactly how you want it. These base layers are pretty much all that you'll need for the time being, because the portrait will create additional layers on top of the canvas. So for the time being, what we're going to do is to get those background colors set in place, and the portrait will create more dense, deeper colors as we go along. Now what I'm going to apply is the green. Now this is just a mixture with the green and the blue, and I'm applying black with the mix as well to get that nice sort of pastel coloring. You can see that I'm using triadic colors, which essentially complement each other quite well. One color doesn't stand out or bounce out over the others too much or as a dominant color, so they're all kind of balanced quite well, and they are all secondary color mixes. I haven't really used any primary colors as such. Even the black has got the mixture of a red in it, so it softens everything up a little bit so that they won't stand out too much and dominate. Don't be afraid to start blending the colors together. If they overlap, that's okay, as long as you're filling all the gaps up. They'll blend into each other quite nicely. Now I'm going to incorporate the violet. So the violet mix is, or you can get that straight out of the tube if you prefer, rather than try and mix it up. But here's the mixture. If you do, it's sort of your reds with your blacks, and a portion of blue as well to get you sort of more of a purpley violet color. Keep filling those sides of your canvas up as well. If you are using a broad canvas, it'll just save you a lot of work further on down the track when you actually start to get to the main composition, which is the portrait part of the painting. I'm actually blending all the paints together now, so don't be afraid to overlap. Using another color to overlap another color, that's fine. A lot of this is going to be set in the background anyway, but what we want to do is just create a nice sort of natural flow through everything, and that means just softening all your sharper edges where the paints meet on the canvas, and you just want to blend them in, make them a little bit blurry, give it that more of a natural feel rather than more of a deliberate line, sharp edges look on it. Now you want to start bringing in your white just to highlight some areas, and it's totally up to you where you want to highlight, but you can actually define where the colors meet, because what that would do is actually lighten up that area through the mix of colors. So what that means is that you'll get a nice blend of lightening from the Jaffa to the red, or the pink rather, and from the orange to the black if you're doing that, where you can see at the top of the canvas up there. What you can start to do now is apply some effects. So what you'll see here is me grabbing the sticky tape, and you can drag it across the wet paint and it will start to blend everything together and give it a bit of a nice pattern. So you can start to incorporate different effects, and this is one that I use with the tape, so you can just drag it across. You can just tear off a piece of tape if you want and drag it across, and it gives it a bit of a windy effect across the canvas. And you can apply this as many times as you like. It's a good opportunity it's a good idea to try and take advantage of it while the paint is still reasonably wet, because that way you'll get some movement out of the paint, and you'll just start to get that blending of, you can see the green overlapping over in the orange area, and it just starts to mix together nicely. One good thing about this technique is that it's good to apply it when the paint is sort of semi-dried. Of course, it won't work when the paint is completely dry, and it doesn't work that well when the paint is really wet either, because you just tend to create a lot of sludge. But this is quite nice. It's subtle while the paint is semi-dried. So what we're going to do now is actually partition off portions of the canvas. So grab your tape and actually stick it to the canvas. Now ideally I should have been using masking tape so you can actually see where I'm placing it, but you can use masking tape or just regular tape and create very sort of skinny triangle patterns, and I'll just show you quickly on Photoshop. Essentially what you're doing is just portioning off the canvas to create a separation. So you're putting tape from one end to the other and just creating triangle like areas that we're going to paint and fill those gaps in the middle there. So with this one you can do one and then do another one just on the other side. Apply 2 strips of tape, and that's the basis of it.